Hello and welcome back to Suspended Fanimation. I'm your host, Dennis Patholkas, and this is Deadly Class Season 1, Episode 3, Snake Pit. And wow, we had a lot again that went on in this episode. Tons of stuff going on in this episode. So let's kind of get to this. I mean, because wow. Spoiler alert, I am going to spoil the episode. So if you haven't watched it, go and watch the episode. Then come on back and you can watch this as a video and comment below or not comment below. So there you go. So we get the very beginning. And I'm seeing I'm jerky a little bit here. So hopefully my connection doesn't go bad this time around because I don't want to have to restart this one again. This is going to be a joy. We have an animated sequence of Marcus, basically the guy that we saw at the end of episode 2, who was molesting a goat, shall we say, is jerking off to a dog show on TV and talking to Marcus, who's in his room. And we realize this is back in the boys' home. And he was the one that actually gave Marcus his scar that he has down his eye, we find out. And Marcus, in the animated sequence there, is holding on to a bomb from what looks like made out of pins, which looks like he made it especially for this guy. So, yeah. And that's all we got on that part. It was just a little tiny blurb, but I think we got a little bit more backstory there on Marcus and this guy. Yeah, the animated flashbacks are interesting, Viking Bitch. I'm liking them too. They're disturbing because they can do more disturbing stuff in them rather than doing the live action. So yeah. So we have Willie and Marcus in Marcus's room, and they're playing video games when they're having a good time playing Uppercut or God, I can't remember the name of the game now. I think it's Mike Tyson's Knockout is what it is, if I remember correctly. And Shab walks in because, of course, he is Marcus's roommate. And Willie all of a sudden hardens up and says, "You owe me that money." And he goes, "You better get it to me." And Marcus is confused at this point. He's like, "What money? What are you talking about?" He goes, "That $2 that you owe me, and you better have it." And he walks out the door. And Shab's like, "Man, you got to watch out who you're lending money to or who you owe money to, because you know." And it's just, I mean, it was a total 180 on that one. He was all chummy until Shab walks in the room, of course, because he has to keep his rep. And Marcus is, Shab was telling Marcus later on about how all the rats take on extra jobs in order to make ends meet there because they don't have money, because they're not legacies, of course. How Lex delivers mail, and everyone else does all these little jobs here and there. And we see Shab also buys a ticket to the dance, to the legacy dance, and of course Marcus is not invited because he's not a legacy, so he's not invited to the dance. And we also see Billy reaches into his locker, and there's a snap from a mousetrap on his hand, which is already broken. And he starts laughing. He sees the guys across the hall go, "Got one." And he goes, "I got it. I'm a rat. Mousetrap." And he's like, and he's laughing the way Billy does, with that really masochistic kind of weirdness that is Billy. And I really do like Billy. I have to admit, it's a weird mix of a character, and I kind of like him. He's very twisted, and I think I've known somebody like him in my life before in the 80s, believe it or not, that was kind of like that. So yeah, it's very true to form, and he's actually kind of more of one of the more fleshed out characters, if you will. So we go into Blow Dart class, and Victor is asking Petra to the legacy dance, and she's like, "I don't think so. That's not for me." And of course, they're all lined up doing this blow dart as the instructor is saying that these indigenous people used to use blow darts. There was a much more effective use until the Russians gave them the really shoddy Kalashnikovs that they ended up using later on. And then we go into poison class, of course, taught by Mr. Denke. And they are working with mellow yellow, which will, if you put a little drop on your skin, will make you hallucinate some really bad shit. And of course, Marcus's lab mate is the guy who set the trap for Billy. And Billy just comes up and goes, "I get it, rat. I get it. It's so funny, rat trap. Because I'm a rat. And Marcus goes to reach over. He goes, "Up, I'll get that." He was going to grab like a candy or something like that, and knocks over the entire jar of mellow yellow onto this guy's hands. And he just starts freaking out. "I'm on fire. I'm on fire." And Mr. Denke is like, "Well, everyone else can go for the day, except for you," is what he says to Marcus. And he pulls him aside and says, he goes, "You got to learn as much as you can, as fast as you can, and get the fuck out before finals." He goes, "You don't want to be here for finals," is what he tells him. And as he's cleaning up the mellow yellow. In the meantime, we find out this is going to be hazing week at this point, and especially for the rats. And it's going to be a really bad time, especially during the dance. It's oh my god. Petra comes back over and she takes Victor up on his offer going to the dance because Brandy basically told her, you don't belong. It's only for legacies only. You don't belong. So she comes up to Victor and says, "You know what? I will go with you just to piss off Brandy." And he says, "Okay." And she goes, "But I'm not wearing one of those frilly dresses." And he goes, "You wear black dress, wear pumpkin head. I'm happy you go." Of course. And she goes, "Do you speak English at all?" Yeah. And the thing is, a lot of this, this entire series, you can tell it's based off of 80s, like John Hughes movies, as well as 70s horror movies. And it's a mix of things that actually kind of go well together. It's a really weird mix, but it does work. And I do like it. It's not bad. I have to pick up the books actually and start reading those as well. We see that Billy and Lex and Marcus are giving Petra shit, at lunch, of course, for accepting Victor's proposal to the dance. And they all sit down to eat, and everyone's staring at them, and they're like, "What?" And Chico comes by and informs them that their special meal is rat. And everyone goes throwing up in the bathrooms, except for Marcus, who's eaten it before. Oh, sorry, that was just nasty. And after they're done throwing up, Lex declares a class war. He says the only way to get back is a class war at this point. And of course, Billy agrees with him because Billy is Billy. And Marcus doesn't want to have anything to do with this. Of course, he doesn't want to get involved. And so he's going to stay out of it at this point. So Chico comes into Maria's room. She's listening to some music, and he tells her that it's time they clean up their mess, is what, and I guess he's talking about the whole thing between him, her, and Marcus of what's going on. And she goes, "You know what? I think I just need a break." And he goes, "What, you want to break up with me?" And she goes, "No, you're not going to the dance. Me and SyFy are going to the dance. We're going to have a girls' night out. I just need a little break." And he says, "Okay, not a problem. That's fine if that's what you want to do." Which, of course, usually when Chico agrees to something that quickly, we know something else is up at this point. So Lex is delivering packages. He's skateboarding down the hallway and throwing packages in everyone's rooms. And he's throwing them in all the Legacies rooms, of course. And when they open up the packages, they're blue dye that explodes in their face. So he hits Willie, Brandy, of course, Victor, and Chico. He hits all of them, and of course they come out of their rooms and they're ready to kill him at this point. And of course, Saya was not hit on this, and neither was Maria at this point. So Denke gives Lynn a note with a drawing on it, telling Lynn that he's out. And Lynn goes, "This is a death sentence, right?" He goes, "We pulled you out of prison. We got you out. We broke you out of prison." He goes, "There's no going back at this point." And Denke is like, this place isn't what it was, 20 years ago, what you guys promised me. He goes, I was expecting to burn down the world. And what you guys are just doing is perpetuating the status quo. And that's the other thing about this episode is we get an overall monologue, if you will, an overarching template of status quo being, it's not changing, even though you have this anarchistic society, if you will, that's supposed to go out and kill people for revenge. They really are still catering to the elite. There's nothing that's really changing. And Denke's calling Lin on his shit about this. And he goes, how many rats actually moved ahead at the end of finals last year? That's right, none. And so, yeah, he's pretty pissed about this at this point. Then we move into everyone in class again, and this guy who is Stuart French, by the way, wheels in a wheelchair with a collar around his neck that's attached to a chain, so I guess he can't go forward all that much. And what do you despise the most is what he asks. And this is the class, the fundamentals of psychotherapy, is what he says. And so he asks, what do you despise the most? And of course, Billy's like, about skaters that turn into rock stars, which I loved. And of course, Victor's response is capitalism. And the teacher's response is, well, you can't really argue with that. And then he gets to Billy, and Billy says, or excuse me, to Marcus, and Marcus says, bullies. And he's, would you care to elaborate? And he just rips into the teacher about, people like you who are trying to basically bully people and all this kind of stuff. And of course the teacher says, well, I think I've found something new to despise. I'm trying to imagine you without feet. And the class is dismissed at that point. Some pretty good stuff. We have Saya, Marcus, and Maria breaking into a place that a guy is holding a hostage and talking on the phone about how he's going to kill this guy unless he gets his money, and that he's going to keep all of the information that he has and all this kind of stuff. And as they're sneaking in through the window, what happens but Marcus trips and makes a noise, and the guy turns towards them, and the fight is on at this point. So both Maria and Saya and Marcus, go flying at him, and he just tosses them all aside. And at one point he grabs Marcus, and Marcus ends up getting the telephone cord around the guy's throat and is choking him out, and he taps out. And we find out that this is the atypical combat skills class. And by the way, the guy who's the teacher of this class is a great character actor. He was in Hell on Wheels for all the seasons. He played the Swede. Great actor. He's been in so many other things, and I love him doing the New Jersey accent. He goes, yeah, when I was a bouncer over at Chest or Drawers, aka Check for Sores, it didn't matter what size you were, it just mattered how you knew you had to handle yourself. He goes, like the homeless kid over here, he had me, he got me down, and he had me because he knows what it takes. The other two of you, out, you're trash. Oh man. And yeah, if I can, I'll get back to your guys' comments here. Thank you, Filthy News. Christopher Heyendal. Yes. He's been in a ton of stuff, and lately as well. Great actor. If you get a chance to see him in anything, he is the new Vincent Scarpelli, as far as I'm concerned, because he just morphs into roles that you never see coming. Or even the new Peter Stormare. Is what I was saying. Yeah. So he's a great character actor, and I want to see more of him. I definitely want to see more of the atypical combat skills class. Oh man. So Mr. Lin ends up going to this place where he has to crawl underneath the door to get in, and all the furniture is made of human beings. They are holding tables up. They are holding shelves up. They're chairs for their mistress, if you will. And he gets a folding chair folded out for him and sits down, and he tells her about Denke and how Denke has been slipping for the last couple of months and that he wants to rewrite his contract. And of course, she says that's not allowed. And he tries to, advocate for Denke because they're good friends. He says, he's been great for us for over 2 decades. He, should get some kind of at least a little bit of leeway here. And she's like, nope. What these people that are around you, they stand for 12 hours at a time. What makes them go through so much pain? And he says, because they have a commitment. And she goes, that's right. And you have to honor your commitments. And she pulls a book off the shelf and opens it up and pulls out a little coin that she gives him. And she says, I trust that you will honor yours. And she gives him the coin and basically tells him to kill Denke at this point, which I'm kind of disappointed about, because I love Henry Rollins, man. Henry Rollins is awesome in anything that he's in. And especially this. He plays the creepy poison guy really, really well. Like, really well. So we got Maria and Saya talking about how Maria wants something normal. She wants a house with books and little kids running around. And of course, Saya says, no, I just want to, party. I'm going to party forever and rule the world. And she goes, but I like to come and visit every now and then. And as Maria says, Saya, the world ruling partier. And of course, they go into a liquor store, and she goes, well, let's see if this guy's a fish or not. And Maria walks up with a bottle of liquor and says, would this go well with salmon? And he goes, how old are you? And she says, 25, sir. And he goes, yeah, I don't think so. And of course, Saya knocks something over, breaks it, and he pulls out a gun and says, you're trying to boost from the wrong store. And they end up smashing a jar of pickled eggs over his head and run out with a bottle of wine each. So yeah, all it was a smash and grab at that point. Kind of a weird little scene, but I was like, all right. So then we have a scene with Marcus writing and talking about how he needs to follow Denke's advice and learn as much as possible and toughen up a bit and get the hell out. And he's also equating it with Jesus and what Jesus needed to learn, that, the people were amassing weapons against him, even though he was preaching peace. And, Jesus needed to learn a little bit about that. It was kind of a weird diatribe. That's all I'm going to say. And Willie comes in at this point, all chummy, and Marcus is like, what the hell, man? He goes, first, out in the hallway, you blew me off. And he goes, yeah, that's because I need to keep up my front. He goes, otherwise I'll get killed. And Marcus is like, well, I can't be your secret friend. He goes, I'm not going to be your friend in secret. It just doesn't work for me. And Marcus gets pissed off, Willie gets pissed off and walks out the door and slams the door. And of course, Marcus says, Jesus never stood a chance, as he says, because he was so nice. So then we have the legacy dance. And as Petra says, this is where fun comes to die. And Victor takes her out to dance and, trying to get her to move a little bit. And we see the rats up in the graveyard. And Marcus, of course, is waxing on about inequality of the masses and McDonald's and chefs. How a chef, he goes, who knows, maybe in the future, it's all going to be McDonald's, and we won't have any little, restaurants that are owned by chefs that are making food. Everyone's going to be just brought down by the man, if you will, and forced to work in these sweatshops, which is pretty much the case. Viking Bitch says, I'm trying to put my finger on what was bugging me tonight. I think it's the class war. It's getting repetitive. Viking Bitch, I knew where this was going. So a lot of people in the 80s in the area that I was at talked this way quite a bit about the whole class war. And it was kind of funny because it was suburbia at the time. They didn't know what the fuck they were talking about in having this class war struggle. It's the same thing with these kids. They're talking about class war. I mean, sure, Marcus knows a little bit more about it because being homeless like he was and really not having anybody to fall back on. But yeah, this whole class war struggle thing was a big thing back in the 80s. And like it or not, Remender really kind of recreates it fairly well, quite honestly. He does a really good job of recreating it in the books and also in the script. And it is one of those things that kind of bugs you, especially when you hear people talking about it all the damn time, because you're just like, shut the fuck up, man. You have it good. You know, you're not being worked to death in a forced labor camp or anything like that. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that part. But yeah, I know where he was coming from on that. So, of course, as he's waxing about the class war and all this kind of stuff, Lex comes in and basically comes in with a box of fireworks, says, let's blow some shit up, essentially. Suck on my flaming phallus, as he says. And it livens up the party a bit up on the, up on the roof. And Chico ends up showing up to the dance, and Saya gets pissed at him and goes, you couldn't let her have one night alone, away from you. And Chico says, so what did she tell you? Did she give you the whole normal life thing about the house with the books and the little kids running around? He goes, she's playing you. You got to wake up. You know, she's just playing you for the long run. And Saya's just, he says, I taught her that, as a matter of fact, is what he tells her. And Saya looks, of course, a little bit dejected. In the meantime, Victor ends up bringing Petra over to the bathroom where Brandy and her brethren are waiting. Her other legacies are waiting, and they grab Petra, dress her up in a yellow dress, put on a blonde wig on her, and bring her out to the front, kind of like like Carrie. I mean, it's pretty much like the Carrie movie, and they dub her the Rat Queen of 1987. Yes, the Miss Rat of 1987. And of course, Victor was in on this the entire time. He was setting her up. He high-fives one of the guys, and she runs off crying. Yes, flaming phallus. You can hashtag that one. So Petra comes up to the graveyard, and she says the guys were right, that she was an idiot for getting involved in all of this. And they're like, you know what? We were just giving you shit. He goes, it's normal to want to belong to something. And he goes, that's the reason why we don't get involved with them. That's the reason why we kind of stay away from them. They say, but we need to, watch out for our own. And at this point, Marcus is like, you know what? It's on. He goes, I'm going to fight for my friends. So he decides that he's going to get together with them and they're going to fight back. And he's going to join the class war at this point. And then we get this really, we get a little cut scene of Lynn looking at a picture of him and Denke together from back where it looks like the 70s. And, he's regretting what he's going to have to do. And Saya, we see Maria come to Saya and she says, what did he say? And Saya says, Chico told me exactly what you told me he was going to say. And they kind of laugh about it. And she goes, you got that strawberry wine? Let's go to Golden Gate Park. And they leave the party. So the rats come to the party dressed as the monks, and they have blowguns. No problem, Viking bitch. Talk to you later. Have fun. Stay warm. Hopefully you don't freeze to death up there in Minnesota with that, polar vortex that's going on. So yeah, the rats come to the party with their blowguns, dressed as monks, and they start hitting everybody with Mellow Yellow. And of course, Billy is up on the stage with the microphone, introducing them to Mellow Yellow. And Victor gets hit, and Petra ends up finding Brandy and headbutts her, and then hits her with a dart to the forehead, and says, "I do declare," as Brandy starts freaking out with the Mellow Yellow. And just then, Chico pushes Marcus into the into the food, and then knocks him down. And before he can start wailing on him, because he takes off his jacket, he's going to start hitting him. Willie steps in and actually pushes Chico and says, "You want some of this?" And which is kind of weird. Is Willie a pacifist? Is he not? I don't understand, because a pacifist usually won't start a fight like that, but is it his front? I don't know. I'm getting kind of mixed signals there. Yeah, Victor screaming at the Baba Yaga is eating my loins. I thought that was pretty funny. But so Willie tells Marcus, of course, to get the hell out of there. And as he turns his head to look at Marcus, Chico sucker punches him. And just then, Mr. Lin comes in, puts one of the bow staffs to Chico's throat and tells him, stop. And he goes, this dance is over. And he has all the monks with him as well. So they've basically, closed off the dance at this point. So the place is empty. Billy is up on stage and he starts up the record player again. He starts playing Lady in Red to Petra, who's sitting there. And they go down and have a nice slow dance. And that's where they end up on their thing, which is kind of nice. So Willie and Marcus are back in their room playing video games. And, Marcus asking is what changed your mind? And Willie says, well, you were talking about patriotism and how people think that they owe something when, it really doesn't mean anything. He goes, for us in Watts, he goes, the military doesn't mean, he goes, they didn't give us anything. He goes, what did matter was that we actually care for our people. He goes, I look out for our people. And that's what got me, is what he says. And so Marcus says, so I'm your people? And they just keep playing video games. Isn't that Doctor Strange's second in command? Yes, Filthy, it is Wong. He plays Wong, by the way. So Denke comes into Lin's office and he says, I hope it's a celebration. And Lin says, he hands him a drink and he goes, no. He goes, the contract can't be rewritten. And so, Denke still is, railing against the system, saying that it's fixed, it needs to change. He goes, you need to change this as well. He goes, it's not what it was when we started this. And he sniffs his drink and he says, potassium chloride. And he puts down the drink and he goes, can you give me a head start? And that's when Lin says, that was your head start. And they start fighting, of course. And it's a pretty gnarly fight. I mean, Denke gets a piece of glass shoved into Lin's back. Lin has him down and he's choking him. And he stops. And he finally tells him, he goes, he lets him go. And he says, they're going to come for you. And of course, Denke does know that and he leaves. And finally, we have one of Saya's group of people, that in his room, and he gets a little package. It has a little drop of blood on the outside, and it has some Japanese writing on there, some kanji. And he opens it up, and he has a stack of money in there, and underneath the stack of money is Saya's picture. So that is payment to knock her off. And that's where we end that episode. Damn good episode. Some really good 80s tunes in this one as well. And some 80s nostalgia for me as well. I mean, it felt like it. I mean, like I said, Billy is very, very reminiscent of an amalgam of people that I knew at the time. And and so is Marcus to some degree as well. Marcus being that mod that he is and talking about class inequality and I mean, it's very weird. So let's get to some of the chat here. Viking Bitch said, I'm trying to put my finger on what was bugging me tonight. I think it's a class war. It's getting repetitive. I would like more concentration on other things. It's the 80s. You are going to get a whole bunch of this class war stuff. It is part of that. I'm sure that's the reason what attracted Henry Rollins to this role as well. It is a lot of what Black Flag, when he started Black Flag, talked about or sung about. So, yeah. Viking Bitch also says he has a point. What is the point of this school if the legacy kids just get to skate through? I don't think the legacy kids get to skate through so much. Well, maybe they do. Maybe they are using the rats as target practice. That's one of the things I was kind of thinking that it's doing now, and I hope that's not the case. Okay. Okay, you guys are talking about werewolves here. That's why I was wondering what was going on there for a second. What else do we have here? Okay, no one else was talking about that. Penn Farm Girl says, yeah, you knew the drink was spiked. Yeah, I knew the drink was spiked from the beginning. I mean, but a poison guy, of course, is going to sniff his glass first, and he's going to know his poisons. So I'm almost done, Filthy. I'm almost done here. So if you like what you see, hit the subscribe button. Also hit the like button. If you don't like me, hit the dislike button. Either way. Also, if you want to see when my next video is going to come up, hit the little bell that's down below. That's the notification button. It may or may not work. It is YouTube after all, so who knows what's going to happen. You're going to see a little subscribe button up here. You're also going to see a video button up here. If you are unsure of whether or not you want to subscribe to my channel, take a look at some of the videos in my library that are tailored to your tastes and see if that floats your boat. And if so, then you can come back and hit the subscribe button over here. So join me. You can also find my schedule on suspendedfanimation.com. It's also on Facebook under Suspended Fanimation. And you can also find me on Twitter and on Instagram as well. And yes, check out Filthy's video on the Batman about the news that just dropped tonight about Ben Affleck no longer being the Batman, that the new Batman's coming out in 2021, and that Matt Reeves is going to make it more a detective-based story than an action-based story. So, kind of interesting. There we go. So again, take a look at the subscribe button. Take a look at the videos over here. Other than that, I'm going to let you guys go for the night. Don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. Otherwise, you may be fed rat for dinner. Who knows? By some dickheads. Good night, everybody.